right, look, another story that really caught my interest yesterday, and we talked about it a bit, was a survey about the risks of, I'm not going to call them hate crime, but trolling and nastiness to our MPs. And the headline, once again, out of Stuff, a story by Bridie Whitten, MPs turn to private security company as disturbing abuse ramps up. And it was based on a survey of 54 MPs conducted in 2022. I found certainly Stuff's conclusions from the survey interesting, and indeed had some questions and some interest in the survey itself. So we got hold of the people who wrote it. One of its co-authors is Dr Justin Barry-Walsh, and he joins us on the line now. Doctor, welcome to the platform. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, just a little bit about you. Can I call you Justin? Would that be all right? We're not doing a consult. Okay. Justin,
no dramas.
What sort of doctor are you? Where do you work? Where do you domicile?
So, look, I'm based in Wellington. I'm a forensic psychiatrist, and forensic psychiatrists are psychiatrists that deal with people that come into contact in various ways with the law, mostly treating mentally disordered offenders and assessing people for court. But for some time, I've also worked in this area of fixated threat assessment, where I'm part of a team that deals with people that communicate in concerning and threatening ways with MPs and others, particularly MPs as public figures. That's a service that's based on a UK service that was set up in 2006. Look, the bottom line is I'm just quite interested in that. So who runs that? Is that part of the department? It's a joint health police initiative, and the reason that we do it isn't just for security and safety for MPs and their staff, but it's also because that way you identify a bunch of people, often with serious mental health issues, who have fallen out of treatment or need intervention and support and don't get it. So the focus is on help and prevention. It's not on prosecution or punishment. And it's related to that we really did the survey. The first survey we did was in 2014. This survey had been done in the UK and in Australia. It had demonstrated that MPs and their staff cop a lot of harassment, and it has consequences. And so we did an initial survey in 2014, found high rates of harassment, and our service got going. Oh, no, just what looked like high rates of harassment. I mean, 84% of MPs in that first survey were reporting harassment. So 84 out of 100% seems like quite a lot. It does.
How do you define harassment?
Yeah, right. So it's defined in terms of their experiences of intrusive, unpleasant, unwanted, threatening communications that cause them concern, reports of intrusions at home, physical assaults, disturbing and threatening behaviour at electorate offices, things like that. So there's a range of relevant behaviours.
But this is based on the results or the responses to the survey, not empirical evidence as to arrests or police call-outs or anything.
No, it's not based on that, and that would be I suspect that would be difficult data to get, and it'd be problematic too, because working in this space, I think.
So it's a survey of how MPs feel.
It's a survey of both how they feel, what they experience, and what happens to them and their staff. So it's a bunch of related things.
Okay. How many MPs have actually been attacked at their home? Of the 54 surveyed?
Right, 18% have had physical or attacks or attempted physical attacks.
Or say they have.
Intrusion. Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's what they're reporting. And about 33% in the initial survey, when we looked at it, were reporting interference with property at home. Similar number in the second survey.
Okay, or what they thought was. But once again, this is their perceptions of it. It's not based on hard evidence.
Well, no, I would call it pretty hard evidence, because this stuff tends to be underreported. And one of the things that really has come through in both surveys, and was really obvious in the first one, is that MPs don't really want to be talking about, well, not that I don't want to be talking about this stuff, but they tend to play it down, and they say, look, it's more a concern for the staff than for me. What we're seeing here, I think, in the second survey is particularly we're seeing this increase in gendered abuse to women and the consequences of that.
Okay, so give me some examples of that.
Well, we're talking about things like women MPs reporting threats of rape to them and their children, that they're going to get their families.
The empirical evidence for that must be easy to find, because they'd report that to the police, wouldn't they?
No, these things aren't always reported to the police, and what the police choose to do with it is another matter. So it's much easier, well, not much easier, it's more relevant to go directly to the person.
Yeah, but a lot of MPs and a lot of political activists play the victim card and cry bully.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the case.
I do think that's the case, and I think it's demonstrably the case.
Well, we're going to differ.
That people say you can't do that to that group because they'll all commit suicide if they've all been the victim of this. I'll give you an example. During the campaign, that young woman in Huntly who said she'd been ram-raided, and it was just complete BS, and the media lapped it all up. So I'm just wondering too, the 54 MPs that you surveyed, were they a totally representative group or not?
Yeah, look, that's one of the problems of the survey. I mean, these surveys, you only tend to get about 45 to 50% response rate. They're anonymous, so we can't comment on that. The first time we did the survey, we got a bigger hit rate. We got over 80% response, so we were confident that one was absolutely representative.
All right, but not the second one?
Well, the second one was a lower response rate, so we can't be so sure.
But I put it to you again that MPs often make up stories about how tough their lives are. And I'd say you could do this about journalists or television presenters, and you'd have much the same result.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. In my experience, both working in this area and doing the research, I very much doubt that that's the case.
Boy, well, in my experience, in 40 years covering politics and politicians, I very much tell you it is the case.
Well, look, we're going to have to beg to differ on that one very clearly.
Look, at the end of the day, this research is only useful if I think it stops negative or antisocial behaviours. How do you apply this research? Because unfortunately, it is being used by, I'd say, unscrupulous media in the context of trying to restrict access to Parliament and being used as an excuse for the Speaker, for example, to consider removing the number of swipe cards that he issues and the number of people who don't have to deal with security. And that's why I think it's important that we do interrogate, how robust your research is, because it might be used to severely restrict the liberties of a number of New Zealanders and their access to our democratically elected representatives.
Look, I totally agree with you that it's really important to interrogate this stuff, and it's important also that good comes of work like this, not harm. But if you're asking me what's going to come from it, I don't know yet, because we've only released it 2 days ago. It's certainly, for me working in this space, it's certainly in helping me think a little bit more about how we approach these issues and, how to respond to situations where people are reporting threats. I think also, clearly, more broadly, Parliament needs to look at issues around security. But look, one of the other point I would make, and it does come through in the research, is that if MPs are being exposed to this kind of level of abuse, and if it's causing them harm and distress that they're reporting, then that's also going to have a negative impact on people's access to their MPs and to democracy, because they're reporting changes in behaviour and doing this and not getting out and not engaging. And I'd be bloody worried about that as a country.